9 years ago, Portugal decided to decriminalize all drugs, soft drugs and hard drugs, in order to combat their substance abuse issues.
Right.
Okay, so that's a really interesting way to handle it. Okay?
Well, look, if they're decriminalizing and they already had really growing substance, it must have been, it's right now you're going to tell me it's out of control, right? Because once you decriminalize, oh my God, everybody's going to take drugs.
Drug use actually decreased. In fact, I know, it's not surprising to us, but it is surprising to a lot of other people, especially those who are for the war on drugs. But what's really interesting is they totally shifted their policy from focusing on people who use drugs as criminals and treating them as people who have an illness that need help. So new research shows that there was a 63% increase in the number of Portuguese drug users who went into treatment.
To get better.
To get better.
And that might have contributed to why they have less drug users in the country now, why the overall drug rate has gone down, because they're getting treatment instead of getting their ass thrown in jail. And by the way, taxpayers paying a lot of money to keep them in jail. So that's also freed up some money for the government as well. Furthermore, 499% increase in the amount of drugs seized, which is really interesting.
Yes, because look, they did decriminalize drug use. However, they did not decriminalize selling drugs illegally. So if you are a drug dealer, law enforcement is now focusing on catching your ass. They're not focusing on people who are addicted to drugs.
See, I didn't expect that, to be honest with you, right? But fivefold increase because they're not wasting their time on the users anymore, right? That's part of the reason why. But when you go to Netherlands, even more fascinating.
Oh my God, the Netherlands, super interesting, and I did not expect this at all. So their drug policy actually became even more radical. They had a huge problem with people who were doing heroin, right? So Dutch officials are like, how can we combat this problem? Why don't we have the government give these users heroin for free? So all of a sudden, if you want to use heroin, all you got to do is go to some clinic, some state-sponsored clinic, and they'll give you heroin for free. Now, the thing that happened is the government giving people heroin for free made heroin so uncool that people were not interested in doing heroin anymore.
Heroin use went significantly down.
Yeah.
No, you know who did predict this? Me. Over and over again. Remember when we talk about it and you say, hey, legalize pot? I say, no, legalize everything, right? And the reason is it doesn't make people use it more. As Portugal has seen, as Netherlands has seen, it makes people use it less.
It does. And let me just clarify one thing. They weren't giving people heroin because they wanted people to get addicted to heroin. Those people who were already addicted to heroin would go and get it from these clinics because they had government officials there who would, basically keep an eye on them and make sure that they're not sharing needles, they're not spreading diseases. So it helped combat that problem as well.
Less people die of overdose.
Right.
Less people spread disease. Less people do heroin. Now, here's the thing. Like in the old days, there was some cachet to some people in doing heroin, right? But now, you're not going to buy it from a drug dealer, right? Because why would you buy it? It's free, right? But when you go into a clinic to get it, it's the least cool thing in the world. And now kids went from thinking that it's cool to thinking it's super uncool.
Exactly.
Okay, when are we going to learn the lesson? Making it illegal doesn't make it any better, it makes it worse.
And another really interesting trend that happened in Portugal is when they decriminalized both soft drugs and hard drugs, they saw absolutely no increase in hard drug usage. In fact, they saw a decrease. With soft drugs, maybe people are more willing to experiment with it. I'm talking about marijuana, but you still, even given that, see a decrease in the amount of use. Because it's, like I've said, it's uncool at that point. The government is giving it out.
No ands, ifs, or buts. The proof is incontrovertible. You do not harm the country by legalizing drugs. You actually decrease drug usage. You decrease the amount of taxes that we pay to keep people in jail for no good reason. You decrease the amount of disease. You decrease the amount of crime. And
even more important, you give people who are addicted the right help. Okay, you give them the treatment that they need rather than throwing them in jail where their problem is going to just get worse.
One last thing, if you're a conservative, you shouldn't want big government telling you what you can and can't do, right? And here's another thing, we can tax the drugs and then that helps us with our deficit problems. whether you're a libertarian, a conservative, or a liberal, you should agree with this. And the facts are completely on our side. We've got to change momentum in this country on this. The drug war is killing us. It's killing the countries around us. And it makes no sense, and it's counterproductive. I got to say, end of this. We should be the cops that stop it.